If you like The Daniel Blair Show, you will love Main Event Moto. Come join producer Joe and I at patreon.com/maineventmoto, where we talk Supercross, we talk motocross, and deliver 3 long-form podcasts per week with no commercials. Again, that's patreon.com/maineventmoto, or you can click the link in the bio. Thanks for watching, and enjoy this week's episode of The Daniel Blair Show.
The Daniel Blair Show. Sponsored by Motosport.com, Mika Metals, Race Tech, ASV Inventions, and Guts Racing.
So many storylines heading into the 2-week break, but there can only be 10 lead stories. And we start with Garrett Marchbanks and Schwartz, who were incredible at Washougal, yet find themselves in a weird position late in the season. Start with the good, then get to the weird. Marchbanks was the fastest in qualifying at Washougal, go figure. On a hard-packed track with little loam, he was able to show his true outdoor ceiling without getting bogged down and losing tenths and seconds to the flyweights in 250 motocross. Schwartz was third in times, which should be a flashing red light to factory teams in the pits due to the "we work with speed" narrative that has existed forever. Then Marchbanks passes 100 people like always and ends up on the podium for the first time in his 250 motocross career, adding to his resume that this year alone has 2 Supercross podiums, has him third in motocross points, third in SMX total points, and now has him like 60-something up on Seth Hamaker in the race to number 10 next year. What a season. I'm guessing he has multiple offers for next year. Then you have Schwartz, who almost got third Moto 1, came from way back Moto 2 for 11th, putting up 411 scores for 6th overall in the day, and now sits 11th in championship points. I'm guessing he has multiple offers for next year too. You know, perception is wild in this sport, and sometimes it makes things that seem so simple weird, and that's what we have here. Marchbanks is seen as too big for a 250, which brings hesitancy for factory 250 teams to want to sign him, even though he's PC Kawasaki's highest ranked rider in points this season, yet for whatever reason, he's unable to close down the 5th spot on the team he's currently on. The dude took a gamble and left a secure situation to ride a new generation 250 for a team that typically struggles with new generation 250s, has absolutely delivered for them, and they're still sitting there going, "No, I don't know, I'm not so sure." But as ridiculous as it seems, maybe it's for the better. HEP Suzuki, Smart Top Honda, Quadlock Honda, Ducati, Triumph, Team Tedder, where are you guys? The dude was built for a 450, and you ain't calling? That's weird to me too. And for Schwartz, as good as he's been outdoors forever, the 250 Supercross resume scares everyone away. He's like a Diet Coke version of Ty Masterpool. It's not a diss, the guy is awesome, but as much as SMX has connected the sport when it comes to points, Supercross still rules the day. Because when you split the coasts and then you split the heat races, you essentially get 1/4 of the class on the gate in Supercross, with a chance to get TV time during the most popular time of the year. This is nothing new, it will never change, and as good as Schwartz has been this year, and every year, that's one of the first times he's been on TV in years. And for a lot of teams, being on screen and getting 30 seconds of play from the broadcasters funds the race team. It's a brutal perception, a tough realization to swallow. It's weird, and it's unfortunate, and for Garrett Marchbanks and Schwartz, the realities are absolutely unfair, but real. Lead story number 9 is a shout out to the AMA, the medics, and to whoever made the call to red flag the second 450 moto and ruin the best race of the year. And to whoever decided to wave Jelique Swole off the track Moto 1 of the 250s and not let him return, good call. This year has been brutal, and between the injuries and the tragedies at home and abroad, we can't mess around with safety. The sport is rad, but it's dangerous, and I would rather take caution than risk it, and in my opinion, these calls were great. I'm bummed for Jelique, who's had an awesome return to racing this summer, getting a whole shot on that track with the way he's been riding. I'll throw it out there. He would have been on the podium, but he washed the front, smacked his head, then laid under the bike without movement for way too long. James said it. He wasn't stuck under the bike, dude was out, or at a minimum knocked silly, and pulling him off was 100% the right call, for his sake. I love the grit, I love his willingness to get up and go. It shows his character, and he is tough. But no, Off the track, bro, see you at Ironman. That 450 moto was so good, maybe the best 10 minutes of the year, and I'm thinking Chase was ready to give Jett 20 minutes of his best. And on that track, on this day, where Jett was a little bit off of his normal alien self, Chase had a real shot to put it on him twice in the same day. But the red flag came out because GT Arena Motocross ace Anton Nordstrom was down and in a bad spot on the track for care, and it was not worth going 20 more minutes without getting him some help. Yes, Chase got screwed a bit, even put him on the gate for the new staggered start in third, but it was the right call. Safety first, forever and always. We move on too quickly from big crashes and injuries. We go, oh dang, then do nothing to fix it. We mourn tragedies, then nothing. I said this last week and I'll say it again. We need an all-hands-on-deck conversation about safety in the sport, and one way to get that conversation going is to recognize when the right decisions are made. So again, to whoever made the call on both of these incidents at Washougal, 2 thumbs up. What an absolute brand bounce back for Joe Shimoda. He's lead story number 8 after winning his hometown race at Washougal. No? You don't get it? Okay, never mind. The answer to the question I posed a month or so ago is clear as day now. Joe Shimoda is the heir apparent to the 250 throne in motocross when the Deegs moves up and on in 2026. It's not even debatable anymore. With Tom Vial heading back to Europe, Chance Hymas recovering from another knee surgery, Levi Kitchen cooking at Waffle House, and the next generation of 250 star not ready to take over just yet, this class will belong to Joe next year. His brand had taken a big hit over the last few years with unpredictable results and, dare I say it, a little too much hype too early due to the natural progression of expectations for a guy who was in the Jett Hunter J Coupe 250 battles for years then was unable to take the class, like the hierarchy would have suggested. He became inconsistent with flashy moments, then periods of mediocrity would follow, and the brand was damaged. But wow, has he rebranded. And if you're Haiden Deegan right now, you are loving the points lead because Joe is on fire, and I think we'll see this the rest of the way out. Don't forget, he won Anaheim 1 this year before having his finger smashed off by a pit board. He's been the only rider this season to give Hayden any sort of aggression. Go back and watch Seattle. And go back a couple years and watch the SMX finale at the LA Coliseum. He gave Hayden a little something there too. He's catching fire at the right time, and I wouldn't be surprised if Deeg starts drumming up some action over the next month or so before the playoffs, because winning his 3rd straight SMX title isn't as guaranteed as you think. Joe is for real. Austin Faulkner is also in the process of a rebrand. I'm not giving him his own segment 2 weeks in a row, but my little heart is warm today after watching the guy grab 5th overall at Washougal with his best moto scores in years, going 5-5 on the day. Keep building, bro, and keep pushing Joe. You are making this 250 class fun to watch, and I have a feeling there's more fun coming. Lead story number 7 is the World Supercross Championship, and it's time for a little update. The CEO of the series, Tom Burwell, had an interview last week with Jace on Gypsy Tales, and it's pretty dang good. It seems like they've had a reset in vision, with clear goals and plans to take the sport global, and little by little news is dripping out, including the roster for the Australian GP. The Gold Coast race will have Ken Roczen in the lineup, of course. That one seems like a no-brainer, but they also announced last week that your 3-time champ Cooper Webb will be racing his very first World Supercross ever. And how about Eli Tomac, your defending World Supercross champ, who will also be on the gate? Whoa, that would be the first KTM sighting for the legend. Interesting. It's pretty rad to have Kenny, Coop, and Eli all racing Supercross in November against Tom Vial, who has also been announced. The 2-time 250 Supercross champ will make his 450 debut in the series on most likely a new colored bike. More news on WSX coming soon. Tom Vial is lead story number 6, and it's looking more and more like he's on his way home, back to Europe, with an MXGP ride with HRC. Talk about the ultimate case of came, saw, and conquered, and I know Tom will always get hit for the lack of wins, the lack of flash, and the lack of domination, but in reality, he's a 2-time Supercross champ and got booted from the class a year earlier than Haiden Deegan and Jett Lawrence did, and he stacked some serious cash over here. Then went home. I still think my idea of him racing the 250 Motocross Championship next year in the US is a good one, but when you take into consideration the offer, I get why he's gone. A 2-year deal beats a 1-year deal every time, and if you think about it from a strategic standpoint, I get why KTM is offering him 1 year on the 450. It's a way to say, hey, we tried to sign you without actually trying to sign him. They know that 450 Supercross will never work for Tom, at least not at the level you'd expect for a two-time 250 champ, so you make a peace offering deal. Let him head home and look at the entire experience as a win. KTM won 2 MX2 titles with him, 2 250 Supercross titles with him. He was drama-free, mostly injury-free, and it's one of the cleanest team-rider relationships we've seen in this sport. Nice work, KTM, nice work, Tom, and nice work, France. You did it again. Christophe Purcell, Dylan Ferrandis, and Tom Vial. Lead story number 5 is Jorge Prado, and with 8 rounds of Pro Motocross under his belt, it's time to take a look under the hood and see how the engine's running. Now, outside of the interviews, which I did not have on my bingo card, I've been pretty dead on with my Jorge prediction and evaluation. And when you look at the numbers, it is getting better, sort of. I always believed that things would improve as the season went on due to a number of different variables, but I will admit it hasn't gotten better at the pace I thought it would. There's still 3 races to go, his first 2-week break is upon us, and if the numbers do improve in August, it'll be a decent finish to the most difficult chapter of Jorge's professional career. Since the season has been split into 2 4-week blocks of racing, we'll look at it that way. In the first 4 rounds, his best overall finish was a 6th at the opening round at Paula. In the last 4 rounds, his best overall finish was a 5th at Southwick, 1 spot better. In the first 4 rounds, his best moto finish was a 5th at Hangtown. In the last 4 rounds, his best moto finish was a 5th as well, but he's done it 3 times, at Southwick, Redbud, and Millville. In the first 4 rounds, he scored 82 points. In the last 4 rounds, he scored 109 points. That's 27 more than in the first 4. In the first 4 rounds, he led 0 laps, and in the last 4 rounds, he's led multiple motos at multiple tracks. Statistically on paper, there's improvement, and I'm guessing that's due to the bike improving, some guidance from the legend Chad Reed, and some acclimation to the American way of racing motocross. If he hadn't begun the campaign of transparency this past month, we'd all probably be saying the same thing. Okay, it's getting better a little. But the interviews have put a microscope on everything, and I'm not sure if that's by design or if it's just the European way of communicating, being totally blunt with your thoughts and giving the fans and your team something to chew on. If the relationship survives, I'm a believer that things will continue to get better. I said from the start that this would be an uphill battle with the change in manufacturers and frames, the change in race structure and format, the depth and pace of the field, the Supercross injury, the almost 0 legitimate preseason testing, and the ridiculous expectations being way too much to tackle in his first season. But if the next 3 rounds are better than the last 4, I'll continue with that belief. Until I see things trend the opposite direction and get worse, I'm willing to ride this out. But it's fair to say there are way less people thinking like me out there, and for many, the patience has worn thin. Your 2018 450 Supercross champ Jason Anderson is lead story number 4. He is out for the rest of the season, and my question moving forward is, will there be a moving forward for El Hombre? I'll start with this. I sure hope so. Jason is one of the coolest and edgiest champs in the sport's history. The racing is always better when he's out there, but there's been some mixed signals in recent months. One thing that seems clear is the relationship with Kawasaki is over, and once Chase Sexton officially signed, which is still not announced because of the silliness that is this silly sport when it comes to announcing silly truths that we all know, which is silly, but that was the end of the Hombre relationship with Green. I've heard over and over again that there's talks with HEP Suzuki, and in my opinion, that is the perfect fit for Jason in so many ways, including a harsh truth for Kawasaki, which is the Kawasaki 450 better than the Suzuki 450 right now? Is Ken Roczen so good that he's making that old dinosaur appear good, or is that bike actually really good? And all the technological advances that the sport has seen the past few years are not nearly as relevant to a factory bike as they are to a production bike. Kenny shreds. The bike seems great, especially in Supercross, and the idea of Jason back on yellow, where it all began, seems perfect to me. Now, I don't know all the inner workings of the HEP team, but I do know that the Pipes family has done an incredible job with that team the past few seasons. Larry Brooks is an absolute boss team manager, and unless Kenny doesn't want to compete over resources with a guy at his level, I don't see how and why this wouldn't work. My hope is for Jason to finish his career where he started it. And I think the spot at HEP would give him a chance to be better than he's been the past 2 years. And most likely, a World Supercross championship would come with it. If it's not done already, let's get it done. Who's the greatest rapper of all time? Dylon, and he's lead story number 3. If you don't get the reference, I pity you. You're missing out. For the Dylan Ferrandis fans out there that have been missing the 14 on the track, well, he's coming back after the break. I thought he'd be back with the Phoenix Honda team next year. He's raved about the bike in every interview he's had this season, but now there's word Ducati has entered the conversation. I gotta be honest, I didn't see that coming. I don't know if it's true because of the silly sport that likes to act silly with future news, which is silly, but you know what I'm saying. But with Factory Connection being tied to the Ducati program and Dylan having some success this past Supercross season on the Honda with FC suspension, it makes sense. Relationships matter in this sport. I'm good with it either way. I've always liked Dylan, and in my years on TV, he was always one of the nicest and most transparent dudes in the pits. I remember a time when he was miserable being here when it came to relationships and food and other things in his transition to the American culture, but I've heard recently that he's loving life here, and he plans to stay even after he's done racing. Dylan will be back at Ironman, and that will be another 450 champ on the gate in the already stacked 450 class. Chase Sexton was awesome at Washougal. He's lead story number 2, and for a guy who has won a lot in his life, that one had to feel good. The ability to stay locked in mentally for 35 minutes in Moto 1 and fairly comfortably hold off the freak show, then make the right decision in Moto 2 to take a loss for a win, makes Washougal one of his best and most complete days he's ever had. It reminded me of a couple other rides he's had on the KTM, at least in feel and look. The first was MetLife back in April, a hard-packed track where he looked flawless, planted to the ground, getting traction when others weren't, while annihilating the whoops like he was at Washougal. There were more than 9 whoops at Washougal, by the way, just saying. But the Washougal and MetLife rides again had me thinking, why are you leaving this bike and team, bro? But I'm not going to kick a dead horse. The other race that comes to mind was Hangtown last year, which I believe was slightly anger-induced, where again a hard-based track had him looking better than anyone, and he charged from 40th to 1st in one of the most epic motos in the sport's history. That day at Hangtown, like Washougal, are the only times Jett has been beaten in a Pro Motocross National, and Chase is still the only person to ever beat him. Hangtown was obviously different. Jett was wounded by his own mistake, but this past Saturday, I think Chase was just better. Moto 1, Jett made an attempt, couldn't stick the pass, slid out, and never recovered. Moto 2, he did grab the win, but Chase played it smart and did what was needed to grab the overall. A big improvement mentally from the mistake at Arlington this past Supercross season, a bad decision that I believe spun his entire season out of control, which led to the loss to Cooper Webb and caused the need for the break that he took early this summer. Big bounce back and a big step in the mental game. Jett's hope of 11-0 are over, and if you look at this season through a microscope, it's actually been a little sloppy. We've seen issues here and there over the years in Supercross, but in Motocross, I really can't remember a season where he's been on the ground this many times and this consistently. From falls to stalls and even a few bad starts, this has been the most human-like season from Jett outdoors ever. And to think he still has a 60-point lead over his brother in second makes it feel almost less settling. And as much as I'm fired up for Chase, I don't see anyone challenging him for this championship, maybe ever. And you all know I'm a big believer in the pending danger and donut rivalry. But if a guy can have this many minor slip-ups and still walk this thing with his eyes closed, it feels pretty hopeless for a real challenge, at least for a championship. Eli Tomac was the hope for me this year, and as you all know, I've completely given up on that idea. This was a massive bounce back for Eli, and I'm guessing that his diehard fans that ripped me in the comments and in my DMs last week are feeling pretty relieved to see the legend ride the way he did at Washougal. What some of you didn't clearly understand last week was this week's ride was exactly what I'm talking about. The realization that on some weeks he will be great, but the reality is a 3 to 7 range moving forward based on the track and the day, and that's exactly what Washougal showed. He had previously been in the top 2 on this track in 15 straight motos. Clearly it's one of his best tracks, and he was awesome, and he got 3rd. To be clear, I've gone from a moderate Tomac fan to a super Tomac fan the past few years. He doesn't have to be racing, but still is, and I'm grateful, and my respect meter is through the roof. My fandom led me to believe that he could give Jett a run this year because that's what I wanted. But reality has set in for all the reasons I explained, and I'm pumped for podium days. Age, injuries, the speed of the current generation, a la Jett, Chase, and Hunter, puts him where he was this weekend on good days and probably a bit behind that on off days. So settle down, you crazies, all right? Y'all made me have to double check what I said last week, so I did. And it was pretty neutral and pretty fair and almost dead on. This week's lead story is Haiden Deegan and Hunter Lawrence, and yes, Deegs lost to the Joe Show at Washougal, and yes, Hunter got a little spanking from the big three, but I'm going to tie this all together for you, I promise. I wouldn't clickbait you in the title of this episode without a nice juicy payoff, so here you go. 2 years ago, Hayden was a rookie, and Washougal was the day everything popped, with a 1-1 smash job that really changed the perception of Hayden with the fans, who were kind of iffy on his abilities. Hunter was the points leader and the eventual champion, but Hayden would go on to win the SMX playoffs that season in his rookie year. Hunter moved on, has been phenomenal on the 450 outdoors, and an easy prediction has him taking the leap in Supercross next year. Without Hunter in the 250s, Hayden has walked the outdoor series the last 2 years in a row, grabbed his first Supercross title around early this year, and has been alone as the guy in the class since the Lawrence brothers moved up. Fast forward to right now. Hayden is a points leader in the 250 class with a 40-something point lead. Hunter is second in the 450 class with a 30-something point lead over Eli, and the pending rivalry between these two is coming, and it's coming before Hayden would ever get to Jett. If he was to get to Jett, it would have to go through Hunter and Chase, and most likely based on the calendar, Eli, Kenny, Coop, Ombre, Bam, AP, and J. Coop, and the whole 450 class. There's been this argument, and I've seen a bunch this past year, that Hayden will never get to Jett's level, and that there are way too many deficiencies in his riding, yet statistically, he's done everything on a 250 to prove it. The wins and titles on the little bike have mirrored Jett, almost to a T, and in reality, he's been more dominant. To think this can't happen is crazy to me. I mean, if Hunter can get to second, why couldn't Hayden? So now let's fast forward to next summer. Hayden will be at war with the 450 class, and as much as his sights are set on Jett, and I do think he'll get there, it'll be Hunter who has to deal with it the most and first. And it goes right back to Washougal 2023, where the only real rivalry with the Lawrence brother has ever happened for the Deegans. There were words back then, enough so that a conversation between the dads had taken place, and it wasn't over Hayden and Jett, it was over Hayden and Hunter. Now, I don't think this talky stuff will stop on the 450s. That's in Deegs' wiring. And while I do think some of it's produced, most of it is real. He's built different. As soon as Hayden has Hunter in his sights, the same tactics that he's used with Chance Hymas, Tom Vial, and Juju Beaumer will begin. Next week, I'll explain in detail why I think the smart move for the Deegans is to start the 450 career sooner than later, next year at Anaheim to be exact, and not at Paula. And we'll see you next week.
Main event motomerch.com. Main event motomerch.com. Main event motomerch.com.